Yeah, hi, my name's Tony Rumble. Look, I came to the club in 1988 as a recruit to Kalamunda. Heard about it from a couple of guys in Dunedin when I was living there. They said that they were going over to Kalamunda to play rugby, and like I say, I'd never heard of rugby in Perth and so forth, so it was something quite new, and I'd had a couple of injuries in Dunedin and club rugby, and I'd had a bit of time off and I was looking for a new start, so I got in contact with those boys, Jason Bishop and Wayne Humphreys, Brendan Jones and a couple of others. There was actually 8 of us came here in that year.
So how did you find out about Kalamunda? Did they already...
there'd been an ad in the paper, and they'd replied to it, and they'd been in contact with Andrew Todd, club steward and life member, and he'd got in contact with them and said that if they knew anybody else and so forth, and they asked me, because I was playing first grade for Kaika at the time, and they said, why don't you come over? And Toddy got in contact with me in New Zealand and Dunedin, and I was quite excited. Obviously a new start, coming to Australia and all the rest of it.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 23, I think I was, 23. So anyway, after a number of, back then there was no emails and mobiles, it was the old landline, so a number of landline, can you be at the house at 6 o'clock and all this kind of stuff. We arrived here on, I think the 13th of March in 1988, and when we left Dunedin...
That was all 8 of you came together, did you?
No, Jason and I came together as the other guys, some of them were already here and a couple of them came later. And we're all in a house out at High Wycombe at 133, I can't remember, anyway, the house number, but we're all placed in the same house. So that was a challenge in itself. So we come from Dunedin, and it was 7 degrees, and got here and it was 37, and I thought, oh, this is going to be hard. Anyway, so Andy met us at the airport in the old Toyota, which we used to borrow on a regular basis for jaunts and all around the place.
Tarago?
No, Toyota, I can't remember what his car was, but it was like a station wagon, and he used to lend it to us all the time. Oh God! And so we ended up out. He picked us up at the airport. It was like 7 o'clock at night, and it was like we got off the plane. It was like, whoa, what this is going to be a bit different. So anyway, we went to training, and our first pre-season after a week was Perth Bayswater, and it was 37 degrees. And I said to Andy, because I said, mate, we're going to play on this, and he said, yeah, you'll be right. So I had the mouth guard from Dunedin and all that stuff. Well, that got the arse pretty quickly, and we came off the field. We had a good win actually, and because there was a number of recruits, there was some English guys came, there was a couple of other Kiwis. It was a pretty big year. I think they recruited 21 people in 1 year, which was huge back then. And anyway, we played out there, and I came off and I said to Toddy, I said, mate, I can't play in this. I said, I thought this was going to be too much. But anyway, you get through it, and he said, mate, winter will be here before you know it. Anyway, so we got through it, and then we just went on from there, and we had a reasonable year. Didn't have a great start to the year. I got knocked out in the first game against Western Suburbs out at Perry Lakes back in the day when it was still around.
What position were you playing?
I was playing prop. I played prop back then. There was Wayne Humphreys. He was another guy from Dunedin. He was a prop as well. He's out of all the recruits that year, Wayne is probably the only one that's still here. I think the rest have moved on. And anyway, we had a good year and sort of played first grade most of that year. Had a couple of injuries, which wasn't great, and then like the next few years, sort of in and out of first grade, and then obviously, not obviously, but I met my wife through Andrew. Andrew was, my wife was my billet. He said, have you got a spare room? And Peter said yes, and I met with my wife, and that's how that all started. So yeah, the club's offered me, yeah. So anyway,
moved in and never left.
Yeah, moved in, bought her, and yeah, so and then met my wife, and we started to have a family, and obviously back then, things were, we were bought a house, and obviously things were getting a little bit, back then the mortgage interest rates were through the roof and stuff, so I decided to work away the age-old problem of coming to Perth, so I decided to go away, which I did for probably 10 years, 10 years. So I sort of was playing for the club, like a bit of, I'd come home.
Fly out.
Yeah, fly and fly. I was doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks on, so it was really difficult to have any sort of thing. So I really, the boys started playing rugby and in the juniors. So we obviously I was trying to help out there and watching the boys play and stuff like that. But when I finished working away, I came back.
So how many years later are we talking about now?
That would have been probably 8 or 9, I think. 8 or 9 years.
It was like 1998 or so thereabouts.
Yeah, 98 I came back. Became junior president. Did a couple of other roles on the committee. And
you still playing then when you came back? Or
yeah, still playing.
Yeah. What grade were you in at that stage?
I was sort of mucking around in 3rd grade, and then we put together a 4th grade of old players that were still around the club and stuff
so
like that.
By that stage you're about 30 or so, in your early 30s?
Yeah, mid-30s I think, yeah. So my playing days were coming to an end. I'd had a huge problem with concussion. I'd been knocked out quite a few times, and yeah, I was having some real problems with headaches and other stuff going on, which wasn't great. So I sort of decided to give it away and sort of just mix around a bit. But we became junior president, and at the time we were there were some really good volunteers, which is a huge part of the club, which always has been a huge part of the club. There were some really good volunteers around. A couple of mates of mine, Chris Fly, Robbie Arnoux, Mark Skiba, and lots of really good people around the kids. And we sort of got a real good group of people together, and the kids started to really develop quite well. And as it does now.
And your own kids were playing at this stage?
Own kids, but Jacob and Benjamin were playing at this time. And
how old were they?
They would have been 9 or 10. Yeah, around that age. They played league early on because I was sort of away from the club a little bit, and we sort of got them involved with league for a little bit there, and then they came across to rugby union, and we just obviously fell in love with it and went from there. But so we became president there, and we started to develop a few things. We got a leadership group going with the kids. We would get all the captains, obviously not the little leagues, but a lot of the captains from say under 9s through to the under 17s. We would get them all in on a Tuesday or during the week, and we would bring the captain of the club, whoever was the 1st grade captain, and we'd just run them through leadership stuff. Who do you look up to? Who led it? So we run that program. We had a leadership program. We had a kicking program. Chris used to run a kicking program, like field kicking, goal kicking, just for the kids, which was really good. And we had lots of little things going like that. And so we moved on from there. That developed quite well. And then in about 2007, we sort of had a bit of a plan through the club and the committee that time's coming. We'd been in grand finals, and we'd really competed, and we had a really good team, and but we just couldn't get over that.
This is the premiership you're talking about?
We just couldn't get over that mark. I don't know what it was, whether it was bad luck, whether it was bad management, what it was, but we just didn't seem to be able to get over that hurdle. And we sort of put a plan in place. Do we need to look outside the club for coaching and stuff? Because we'd always sort of look within the club, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. All of it, good players don't always make good coaches. We've been really lucky with got likes of Snow Smolinski, Tim Cassie Maiwai, really good coaches, and others. We've been reasonably lucky, but we just hadn't made that extra leap. So we decided to go with Paul Kemp. We tried to get him in 2007, unsuccessfully. He had a few...
Where was Paul at the time?
Paul was in Waikato at the time, and he was coaching Howtap, and they were a premiership winning club. They'd won numerous premierships in the Hamilton competition, done really well, really, and 2007 we were looked to get Paul to come, but anyway, it fell through. There was a family issue or something.
There was a connection in the club with Paul, was there?
Yes, was with Paul. Anyway, with that, this is how it started. Paul sent 3 players over in 2007, David Cara, Quinton Tafua, and Dion Berryman. and they played in our first grade in that 2007 year. And we had a lot of good players, but these three really took us to another level. And you could see, like, Jesus, these blokes can play.
And what positions were they playing?
David was they're all backs.
Okay.
Fullback. Quinton was a winger, big winger. Reminded me of Marlonu straight away. As soon as he walked in the door, he just, same thing, struggled with the heat. One night down here, Thursday night, he came up to me and he said, I don't know if I can play anymore. He was vomiting and too hot, he just couldn't deal with it. Dave he was a bit of everything. He sort of could cover the inside backs and win. So they came in 2007, went really close again. I can't remember who we lost to in the semi. We sort of had a really good year. Andy Spice and his dad coached us that year, had a really good year. Andy Spice he'd been playing first grade for us. He had a really good rugby brain, and so did his dad, both Hamilton blokes. Hugely respected amongst the player group, and so when we decided to get Paul, that sort of my heart goes out to the pair of them, because we had to sort of not let them go, but we wanted to go in a different direction, so that's what we did. So anyway, 2008 came around. Paul decided to come. Funny story. First time Paul came to Kalamunda was in 2007. Anyway, we're playing UWA, and we're there, and they're absolutely feeding it to us, like giving us a hiding. And Jimmy Berry, another club stalwart, a lot of guys, funniest bloke you'll ever meet. Jimmy's there with his his son Matty, and Matty's first thing Paul sees is Jimmy and Matty. Jimmy's abusing the players on the field, carrying on like a pork chop, and walking up, and he's grabbed Matty. We're out of here, and that's the first thing that Paul's going, what have I come to? Anyway, so that was just one thing. Anyway, so Paul came in 2008, and we were lucky enough. I've written a few names because I can't, off the top of my head. David and Dion and Quinton were still here. We had a number of really good first grade players. We had Kane Allen, Nick our Rangi Fitu, who is still with the club now. Does not ever get the accolades that he should have. He is a tremendous, really quiet, hardly says mate, but his playing ability and his just general, I take my hat off. I've always thought of him as something special. We had Johnny Williams, Aaron Manette, Bradley Bell, the Yarp, Matt Peachy, Kyle Skiba, and Nicky Carr was here. So we had a lot of, and Cruz Arnu was just really starting. He was at a Guildford Grammar situation. He was there, but he was sort of mixed with the Force. The Force had got their hands on him, and he was sort of mixing with them. So he was coming into the thing too. But that year, Paul brought in Martin Harpy, who was a huge lock, biggest, tremendous footballer. Aaron Murphy, best halfback. Between him and Peter Simpkins, two best halfbacks I've ever seen at this club, ever. Jamie McQueen, Mormon guy, wouldn't play on Sundays, which could be a problem because back then we used to play Perry Lakes on Sundays. But he was Paul's captain. He was just a bullock.
The Michael Jones of
Kalamunda. There was no ifs, buts, maybe. He didn't play Sundays. So that was a bit of a thing. We had Sola Fafita, who's, and Hayden, Jeremy and Conrad, and we had Andy Spice as well at that time. We didn't, just getting to the Force, we didn't have a lot of, I wouldn't say luck. Our relationship with Force players has sort of been up and down. We've had some great ones, we've had some, I don't really want to be here once. So that year we had two guys, Valeni, I can't remember Valeni's second name, great ex-league player. He was about 6'5", 6'6", run faster than any back that we had. And we had another guy, Josh Tatupu, who was a wonderful footballer. Anyway, we had a terrific year. I think they lost one game, which was the fact that Paul rested about 13 of them, so he could sort of try out other guys, which, back then was something a bit unheard of, really. But we had a tremendous team. They were very, very good. They real rugby smarts, everything like that. And the other thing with that year was we had a really good second grade as well. We had Andy Spice played a lot of second grade, and he was a really good tactician. He was well respected by the players, and he could run a team. And they had a great coach in Tim Casimaiwai, who was a real forward thinker, all this kind of stuff. So that was great. And we got through to the final against Wanneroo in Netherlands, and they won both games. And mate, it's one of the, I've got to get a promotion here, sorry. One of the proudest moments of my life. And like I saw Toddy, who's one of my biggest mentors at this club, and a great friend, and he's no longer with us, which is very sad. And Jimmy, who's no longer with us either. It was, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry.
So that was 2008, so we're talking like 16 years ago.
Yeah, 16 years ago.
34 years the club had been going and had not won a premiership. So
no, and we'd won that year.
That was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, they, I must admit, sorry. And anyway, that year, another thing that we did, another thing that Paul did at the start of that year was he started an academy. They all talk about these academies. Oh, we have this and we have this and we have kids down here. But he actually had hand-picked probably 50 players, 50 kids from the junior ranks. And out of that group, I would hate to think how many of them went on to play first grade. Like, not just because of whatever. They learned tackling skills, they learned rugby skills, they learned not just, catch and pass skills, they learned rugby skills, which was a big part of it. And part of that academy is we had really strong connections to the Darling Range Sporting College and to Guildford Grammar, something that has sadly sort of dwindled in the last few years. Lots of different reasons why, COVID, things went completely barrel up then. Yeah. But it's probably something we need to look at in the future, getting involved with these schools. There's so many sports now. Darling Range, they have football, cricket, soccer's become a big thing now. So that was a big part of that 2008 year, and predominantly in the next few years, a lot of those players from that academy went into first grade.
What was your role during this period?
I was president during that year. I was president 2007, 2008.
Oh, okay. So you were president
all through that period.
So, fantastic.
I mean, it wasn't easy. We had a lot of things like.
And how long were you president for?
I think 4 years.
Okay, so starting 2007.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed every minute of it, but there was some challenges. We had a bit of a problem here one evening after a game, and a few of the players started to play up, so I had to I didn't do easily. I had to stand down 5 of our first grade for a game. We had to bring all these young blokes in, and that didn't sit that well with me, to be honest. But I had to sort of get something sort of control, and honestly, it sort of worked a lot. It went a lot better than I thought it would go. I thought a lot of people would crack the shits and see you later, but it worked really well. We just sort of went through that period, and we lost a number of players. Kalamunda, as all WA rugby has been, is very transitional. A lot of players come and go. During my period, in the 80s, 90s, players would come for 2 or 3 years and sometimes a year and go. There's some people that have been here a long time, but a lot of people sort of come and go, which isn't.
So
it's a challenge.
I mean, why have you been one of the people that have stayed connected
I met
to the
my
club?
wife. The club's always been here for me.
You've always lived in the area, have you?
Always lived in the area. I've met some wonderful people through the club. Like I say, I've got some dear friends that I've met through the club. I don't see them all the time, but when I do see them, it's quite special. Guys I play with, I don't see them all the time, but when I see them, we can catch up and do stuff like that. I can't tell you how much I owe to this club. Both my boys have played here, and that's oh God, I'm silk. That's one of the proudest things that I've, both of them have played 100 games for first grade.
Yes.
And they're far better players than I ever could have imagined to be. I was journeyman at the best. I love playing rugby. I wanted to win. I don't understand people that play that don't want to win. That rugby is a game you can play with lawyers or labourers. And it's always been the same to me. I think it's a wonderful sport, and this club is just, we've had some very special people come through here, and still have got some very special people here. And it's a family club. I don't care what anybody says. You look around Perth, you go to people's clubs, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, boys, you got a few this and a bit of that. But this is a family club. People bring their families here. You have a million kids running around the back playing rugby. And they're all playing together. They don't care. They don't give a shit. Mum's got $5 or $500. So.
And multi-generational too.
Yeah, it's extremely.
You got grandchildren yet? Are they playing rugby yet?
Yes, I have. I got my grandson played this morning. And
okay.
it's something I'm really proud to be a part of. I don't say I'm a huge socialiser here or anything like that, but I love coming down to watch it. I love.
And you follow the premiership team?
Yeah, very much so. My son-in-law plays in the Owinger, plays in the first grade. He's married my daughter. She met him through here.
Well, you're going to the game today, aren't you?
Yeah, we're going to the game today. Both my sons met their wives through, or partners or wives or whatever they are these days through here.
So your whole family is made from the club, really.
Yeah, it is. I get really emotional. I owe the club a lot. I see people come and go, but the people that have hung around and that are still playing. I see guys like Nick Howe. I can't speak highly enough about Nick Howe. He's a wonderful, with the young blokes and stuff like that. He's finished his career now. Now he's putting into recruitment and doing what looking after first grade and stuff like that. But there's not just him. There's other people as well. A lot of the ladies, the ladies thing that's going on. I remember when the women's rugby started. It was a novelty. Don't get me wrong. I'm from bloody wherever, but it was a novelty. Now it's they're part of the group. They are what we look to for the future, and the young girls that want to play there, and we've got girls in the force and stuff like that.
And high achieving.
Very high achieving. We've got Australian players playing here, for Christ's sake, just stuff like that. And it's just good. The club's developed a long way, and I think from where it came from back in those early days, where it has developed into something really special.
So in your years following your presidency, what sort of involvement have you had in the club? Just a supporter, or have you been
mostly supporter of the kids, of the boys, coming down to watch the boys play, done a bit of coaching, coached a few teams, I coached all through the junior stuff, all the kids' games, through the 12s and 13s and all around that area, just trying to do what you can do.
Yeah.
And then I just managed with Paul over the last couple of years, Paul himself, Paul was first grade coach over the last couple of years, he came back.
So you were the
I was the manager.
The team manager?
Yeah, team manager,
okay,
which
cool.
I enjoyed, just being in there.
Until last year?
Yeah. Finished this year. Last year I finished.
Yeah. Because Joe's the team manager this year?
Yeah, so I enjoyed that. You just...
So you did that with Paul for quite some time, did you?
Yeah, I've always sort of...
So how many years would you have done that, would you say?
Well, God, I'd hate to think. Paul coached at another club for a few years, so he was sort of away from it. And I when he came back, I said I'd manage for him. So I did it for 2 years with him.
Okay.
But yeah...
And the two of you are going off to the game together today?
Yeah. We're hoping to. I'm just waiting on a message from him, actually. So yeah, hoping to head off today.
Well, I'm seeing him at 1:45, so he better get his ass here shortly.
Yeah, so... Yeah, like I say, I thoroughly enjoy it. I love watching the young blokes play, where guys develop. There's nothing better than watching someone come from the junior level and them excelling in the senior grades. Yep. Because it's not easy. It's not an easy transition, because it is a big step up. I mean, people can say what they like, but club rugby is quite strong here. It is quite strong.
Yep.
As we're finding out this year. We've got a number of recruits, but we're finding out. We sort of thought, give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back at the start of the year, maybe a bit too early, because there's some good footballers around. And with the force going the way they are, it just it's just where it is, where we're at. So there's nothing better than watching a good junior come into the senior ranks and really excel.
Excellent.
Because there has been some really good ones.
And look, now that we're at the 50th year of the club, I mean, as a final sort of parting gesture, I mean, what would you say to your experience, your quite long-term experience with the club? You've been around for quite some.
Like I say, to get to 50 years, a lot of hard work's gone in behind the scenes that people don't realise. And to get to 50 years is a huge achievement. Any club, because one thing Toddy always told me, right from the word go, you're 2 years away from being nothing. And he said it can happen very quickly. Business, same thing. Clubs, whatever. And it's a testament to the people that have worked here over those years.
Who essentially been volunteers.
Yeah, essentially volunteer, because there was no payment for anything back in the day. But things have moved on. So that's part. My main thing is I would love for us nothing for us to get across the line on grand final day one last time.
One more time.
One more time. Just for the players, just for that feeling, mate. It was. I think for clubs that the likes of the Netherlands, and even saying that now because they've had a huge turnover, they're not regular they're not regular premiership winners, and other clubs as well. To have that feel within the club, mate, to come back here after a grand final win, mate, there is nothing. Work, whatever, see you later. It was the best feeling. The kids were, mate, everybody's up and about. They were here for like 4 days, what you can imagine, but just to have that feeling again, and just to have that winning feeling.
There's been a little taste of it quite recently, hasn't there, with the pre-season cup winning the curtain raiser, to the Force a couple of weeks back. So
I just think, for myself and for a lot of people that have put so much hard work in, just to have that taste.
That's the ultimate.
Yeah. Brilliant. And you have to work together, mate. You have to have a good team. I think you can't be doing it yourself. You try and do it all yourself, it just goes pear-shaped. You've got to have a good volunteer group, and you've got to have good people around you. So
what happens now, Tony? Now that we've had 50 years, you've had the ball, that all went pretty well currently. Now, what's your engagement with the club for the next?
I'll always be here. I'll always be here. Okay. Sorry.